Any technical issues? Thank you very much, Mrs. Zoom, for letting us know that. We are, as it's the last session today, we are going to be asking you to complete a little bit of paperwork for us. We'll do all of that digitally, electronically. You can sign it digitally, but your business development manager will be in touch at the end of the session and just ask you to confirm your attendance. And if you can get that back to us as soon as possible, we would be really grateful. Thank you. It's easy, it's a couple of clicks. And our session, the first part of our session this morning, we have the very wonderful Mish Pointer. Mish is highly gifted in many aspects of business. She started her own business very soon after graduating and is regularly now pulling in industry awards for her brilliant online business, Mish, where she sells lingerie. She has won many awards: Best Niche Fashion Retailer, Best Lingerie Retailer, and recently, and an absolute first, in the Drapers Award, she's just won, literally hot off the press, the Best Customer Experience in UK and Ireland. Scoring 100% in every category. So we've got some super duper heavyweights for you this morning, folks. So get your questions at the ready as we go through. We've got, again, a lovely session where we're going to be in and out of the breakout rooms today, chance to work in smaller groups, talk through some of the content that the guys are going to throw at us. Really get you thinking about some of the really important questions. So I hope that we've got a bit of a grey and dull one today. We've been blessed with the sunshine for all of our sessions, but I think there's going to be lots of concentrating to do today, and I think some really valuable information coming your way. So let's just click on the slides if that's okay. Mish is driving the slide, so I'm just going to get her to click on. Some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today is stock management. We're going to be looking at marketplaces. We're going to be looking at trends again. But it's always useful for us to just get a sense of what's going on in the room. So one of the questions we asked you in the questionnaire was, are you having challenges around stock management? And I'm really pleased to see that the majority of the room aren't. But if we just go back to what Jay was saying very early on and what we've experienced literally in the last sort of 48, 72 hours of fuel shortages, I think we've got to be really on top of our stock this year. It's going to be so important. We asked you what you were using, and it's great to see that we've got people using Sage, using spreadsheets, multi-channel software, and lots of the apps that come with Shopify, some couple that I've not heard of, but you seem to have a good handle on your stock management systems, and Jacko's going to be talking quite a bit more about those later on today. If we move on again, we've asked you some more questions around how you're selling online, just looking at the channels that you're using. Huge proportion of you are using your own website. A few of you are using Amazon, a few of you are using other third-party marketplaces, and a few of you, I'm not sure what those other ones are, we'd be interested to know, but there's a real array of tools that people are using. And there's just a quick reminder there of all of the things that you said that you were looking to get out of this lab series. So just a reminder, I had to say I had a flux. What is that? Is that a new e-commerce term I haven't heard of? But it is. I think you're generally looking for a flux of customers to hit you. And I certainly hope with some of the tools that you may well have picked up over the sessions, that's going to happen for you in Q4. So without further ado, award-winning best customer experience. Wow, Michelle, that is amazing. Congratulations to you and the team. You must be really proud of that one.
Morning, Ali. Yeah, absolutely delighted. And when I was sat there at the awards and hearing the editor sort of, they always give a little bit of a teaser as to who the business might be. I had absolutely no idea that it was us. So I sat there going, oh wow, they've done really well. Look at that, 100%, which is the first time that has ever happened at the awards. And then they read out Mish, and I was like, haven't got anyone ready with my camera or anything, because just didn't expect that was going to happen. But no, absolutely delighted. And I think what it shows is it's not about size. To put it in context, the likes of Barber and companies like that were at the awards. They scooped up to. They are obviously, I don't know, 10 or 100 times bigger than we are. It doesn't matter. Customer service or customer experience is just that. And you could be a one-man band and you could deliver potentially better customer service than somebody who's a lot larger. So I think with all of these areas, we can sometimes feel overwhelmed, but it just goes to show it's not about size. It's what you do with it. So yeah.
And what impact does winning an award like that have on the hits to your site, Mish?
It definitely goes up, because the first thing is it gives us something within social media to be talking about that's not just a hard sell. So it re-engages the customers, it reminds them, and it sort of also allows them to nudge their friends and be like, oh yes, this is where I go, this is where I get my things, and that sort of confidence as well. Equally, I'm quite looking forward to, in the next couple of weeks, having conversations with local media and radio and things like that, just sharing more of the story behind it. So it has a huge positive effect. And I think, again, smaller businesses can potentially just look regional. They don't think, and this is a conversation I've had with drapers, that businesses don't think they're necessarily good enough or big enough to enter, and actually they absolutely are. So I would encourage anybody to put themselves forwards, or if it's not themselves putting them forwards, their brands or whoever they work with, to do so, because you'd be quite surprised, really. I think in Cornwall we'd look at the Cornwall Awards or things happening in the Southwest, but no, I'd encourage you to go for the nationals. And to be honest, even if you don't win, you get really good feedback as well, so you can learn from that, which is obviously really valuable.
Fantastic. And you wear a couple of hats, don't you, Mish? So not only do you run a very successful online shop, you've got a bricks and mortar store as well, and you also work to support other retailers with your consultancy business, Retail Fixers.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mish is multi-channel. It's not quite omni-channel. So we run that across marketplaces, our own dedicated website, and a bricks and mortar shop based in Weybridge. So that certainly keeps me on my toes and has had an array of challenges we've never seen before in the last 18 months, definitely. And then my other hats and big passion of mine is the Retail Fixers. Because it's fascinating to go in and help other businesses with their challenges and their strategy, and apply sort of my knowledge that I've gained over the years to that business, because often what somebody thinks their issue might be, it's something quite different, and to be able to help with that and see it grow and just see them progress, or give them the confidence. Again, there could be an issue around, I don't think we've got the time or the capacity, and they absolutely have. So it's an absolute delight to work with such a variety of businesses, and it was just going to be bricks and mortar transitioning onto online, and it's included museums and farm shops and manufacturers and everything in between. So I absolutely love it. It's
fair to say you've been there, seen it, done it, worn the t-shirt. So any questions, guys, for Mish as we go through, get them, pop them in the chat. We've got lots of opportunities to stop as we go through for Mish to pick those up for us. So I'm going to hand over the slide deck. The floor is yours, Mish. Take us through.
Thank you, Ali. Okay, good morning, everybody. So I'm just going to start with, what does the current landscape actually look like in terms of retail? Because it's changing, it's always changing quite quickly, but right now it's probably changing even faster with what's gone on in the last 18 months, 2 years. So we all know about COVID, and although the effects are in some respects lessening, you know, our shops are open, the other effects are coming in. So it's having an impact on, you know, delivery drivers, and obviously we know what's going on with petrol, but there's a certain amount of the workforce which are isolating. Currently, right now, I've got a member of staff that is off. Her child had COVID, so she was off, and then on day 10 she's caught COVID and she's off. So we'll be losing, you know, we've lost her in the business for 20 days. So COVID is still very much around, and I had to make the call to, although she could come into work in that first 10 days, to keep her at home because of the impact on the other staff. Otherwise I could have lost them all. Brexit, people have varying opinions, but without a shadow of a doubt, it's having an impact, even if that's just around VAT and import and customs duty, but potentially its impact on, again, drivers, deliveries, stock, and the movement of stock. So the British High Street has lost 11,000 shops in 2020. The positive I took from this is that it only lost 1,442 independent retailers, which actually is kind of in keeping with what's happened the last few years. It's a decline, but I mean, you know, it's in a bit of a sorry state. I'm lucky we're in Weybridge. Weybridge looks fantastic. It's full of independents, but it's a town that is very much bucking the trend. 38.3% of all non-food sales is now happening online, and that number is from August. The number actually dipped slightly from July to August as people went back to the high street, but nevertheless that line is generally increasing. And this time last year when we were talking about it, we were talking about that number being about 28.1, so that's over a 10% jump in a year, which is phenomenal. And one other thing to really think about is that things are changing and people are looking for new, which is great from where we are as independent retailers. So the search queries are not ones that have been seen before. And also, over the time of the pandemic, many people have discovered new brands online, because I think one of the fears as an independent retailer or the owner of a small brand is, will you get found online? Well, the answer is that lots of people have been finding new brands. They've had more time on their hands. They've had more time sat in front of a computer, and it is happening, which is fantastic to see. Also, I think over 50% of consumers have also found a new way to shop. So whether that be by an app or buying online and picking up in store, they've used a method that they weren't using pre-pandemic as well. So if we go over to marketplaces, and I will just say at this point, I'm going to focus quite heavily on Amazon, but not from the perspective that I'm saying you must sell on there, otherwise you're missing out. There'll be lots of things I'm going to cover, which you can take back to the marketplaces you already trade on or onto your own website. So please don't worry, this is going to be a strong Amazon sell. There are definitely times and places many companies could and should be on Amazon, but yeah, you should be able to pick up plenty from this, even if you don't want to trade on there or you're not trading on there. And back to marketplaces as a whole. So 57% of buyers, shoppers buy from marketplaces, and that's much higher than directly to their own an own website. And that kind of makes sense, because if you've never heard of the brand yet, you're not going to be searching for a word or a brand you've never heard of within Google or putting it directly into the URL bar. So if, for example, you trade on Etsy, you might not know exactly what you want, but you might know that you need a gift for a certain person. Or I was doing up a house recently and I knew I needed some kind of nice wooden rustic shelving, but I had no idea what the company was called that sold the nice wooden rustic shelving, but I could use those words. So I therefore shopped from companies I'd never heard of, but I liked the service they gave, and I put them in my sort of saved list, and on two occasions I've already shopped with them again. And I think that what we're seeing is this continued growth in marketplaces. And interestingly, another thing that's come out, particularly in the pandemic, is the growth in niche marketplaces. So there are now dedicated marketplaces, for example, for artists to be selling artwork. So you're in an environment which is just like you. So we have the big boys, we have Amazon, Etsy, not on the high street, eBay, but equally we have tiny emerging ones coming through that are proving to be really, really valuable within the market. And with that comes more competition around fees. So that's potentially going to really help as well. So what's happening on Amazon specifically? So over a third of all UK online shopping happens through Amazon. So kind of let that one sink in for a minute. So no, you don't have to be on Amazon, but yes, you are missing out on a huge proportion of what's happening within the UK sales, retail sales, if you're not there. And one of the big pulls for Amazon is definitely people having Amazon Prime. That I certainly know of a few people that will not shop on Amazon because it's just not their thing. But the ability to get things so very quickly and with free delivery because you've paid up front is definitely a massive, massive pull. But interestingly, and I think it often goes unmentioned, 58% of Amazon's sales are made up from SMEs. So it's small businesses selling their products through Amazon. And that could be their own branded products, or that could be, large, well-known brands. That could be end of line that they're selling through, or it could be bread and butter. And it may well not be all year round. It could be to deal with seasonality around Christmas or around the summer or whatever is the sort of dominant season for you. So Amazon, should you sell on there? Should you not sell on there? So pros, obviously, it's the largest selling channel in the world. You have really good access to foreign markets. And right now that's perhaps more important in the sense of within Europe and having left the EU, but both Amazon and eBay have the ability to take care of the VAT and the customs and everything for you, so that you're not having to register for VAT in multiple countries, because many UK sellers have stopped selling into Europe because it's just become too costly. By using a marketplace, that suddenly becomes available again. On Amazon, you can trademark your brand, and then that leads really nicely onto building basically an Amazon shop, which looks far more like your company than Amazon. And I will show you an example of that shortly. It also means that if you own the brand, you could decide, for example, to be the only company you're going to allow to sell on Amazon. And that means you prevent that race to the bottom in terms of pricing. I believe companies like Chili Bottles, they sell themselves on there. They haven't given it to any of their other people that they stock, and that essentially protects the price without having to price fix, because the competition has just disappeared. And yeah, there's all sorts of tools coming through that allows you to tell your story about your company much better, adding video. And like I say, I'll show you, it's called A+ content, but the area that you can build to make look like your own business. And one key point that we're going to touch on again when we get around to fulfillment is FBA, which is fulfilled by Amazon, is what that stands for. And that's when you send your products into Amazon, and when somebody buys it, Amazon ship it straight to them. They deal with the vast majority of the customer service and the returns on that as well. So that's can be a massive plus, particularly if your business sort of sees peaks and troughs and you need to scale up at a moment's notice. You can utilize Amazon. Cons: if you do not have your own brand, for example, then the competition can be really, really high. Or if you're selling something generic, then again, the competition can be really high. We are seeing from China, manufacturers there manufacturing products and sending it straight into Amazon on the FBA program, and kind of cutting out the middleman. So whereas people may have bought from places like China wholesale and then sold on Amazon, they're cutting you out, which means they can sell it at a lower price, and it's just not viable, or they're not willing to sell to you anymore. Amazon fees, they take a huge chunk of your revenue, but on the positive side of that, they're only taking it really when you're selling, unless you're buying advertising. And if we compare it to what you'd pay for Google advertising and other bits and pieces, often the fees can work out sort of not as expensive as you think. However, probably the biggest problem with Amazon is the threat of always being delisted. It's really easy to break rules that you didn't even know about and then get chucked off and then have to go back on again. And getting chucked off at a moment's notice is not much fun, because your business obviously goes from whatever point you're at to not very big very quickly. So how to use Amazon to improve your own website or other marketplace listings. So I'm going to hopefully take you straight over to Amazon. And I'm going to attempt to share this screen. She says, yes, there is. Okay, so hopefully you can see, make it a bit smaller so I can see, my window here showing Amazon. So just going to go back to the beginning here. So I believe that the case study was for Pete's Pumps, and he sold his own branded trainers and other brands of trainers. Good sized business, I think it's turning over about 800K from memory. So how could he utilize Amazon to help his sales? So I did a quick search for ladies trainers, and obviously this is a very, very busy category. You know, it pulled up over 40,000 results. So how do you use Amazon to help your own business? So some of these brands you can tell are coming straight from China, but we went with this one on the end over here. Now this is a sponsored post, but if we went further down, we would find it in the main section. But we're just going to follow that through. Now, the bit that made me want to look at this one is the review score of just over 3,000. So that is not the same shoe. I've been playing with the system. Bear with me. Right, we'll reopen this one. Okay. So this is this running shoe that we're looking at. And if we scroll down and keep going, so this is where the A+ content has come in. So this is from the brand. They've been able to add more about them and what they do. They've added this section here, which, as you can see, shows off the product much more and has much more of a feel of their brand themselves than a generic Amazon listing. So they're able to get across, you know, how to measure, what it's made of, all that kind of stuff, other shoes that they sell, and how, you know, comparing them. And then if we carry on down and down and down, so on every Amazon listing, you can obviously leave reviews. When the review scores get to a certain level, it starts to populate this section here, which are phrases and words which have come up in multiple listings. And what you can do with those is, so if this product is similar to what you sell, you know, price point, quality, value, things like that, then it's worth taking these words and going back to your own listings, whether that be on Amazon, on another marketplace, on your own website, and working these things in, because these are what the customers are saying about the product. So, you know, for example, take perfect fit. How would you get a perfect fit? And then you carry on talking about how to size up for these trainers. People are obviously happy that they're lightweight. That's important if you're you know, someone who runs a lot, because you don't want heavy trainers. You've just got to carry them around with you. Value for money. So things may be really expensive or they may be really cheap, but the point is, are they value for money? And so things that are going to get that across, you can use the phrase value for money. You can also talk about what other people have said in the reviews about your products. Obviously, you can't go and steal another product's reviews. Even things like running shoe. So Pete's Pumps, is he calling them pumps? Is he calling them trainers? Is he calling them running shoes? It's really important that you use the phrases that the customer is going to use when they're searching for your product. I this summer worked with a jewelry maker, and I'm not totally up on my jewelry terms, but anything I wear around my neck, I call a necklace. On this particular occasion, what she was selling was a pendant, and she was absolutely right. In jewelry terms, it was a pendant. But as a customer who doesn't know as much as she knows, I'm always going to search for a necklace. And the word necklace didn't feature anywhere on her website because they weren't necklaces. But equally, I'm never going to find her website because I'm looking for something under the term necklace. So as the owner of a company and the owner of a brand, sometimes we can get very tunnel vision on what something is and the correct terminology. And what we need to do is open our eyes to what the customer might be saying, even if the wording is slightly incorrect. It happens the same in lingerie, a style of or cut of bra. So people refer to it in very, very different ways, between balconies and shelf and half cup, and and they're all actually talking about the same product. Now I know which word should be used, but there's no point me just going, well, my website is correct and that's that, because it will be correct, but it is going to gain fewer sales. So in your descriptions, in your titles, you want to work these things in, not to the point that you confuse the customer, because that's obviously going to have a negative effect, but in a way that the customer can really use and gain confidence that what they're looking at is what they want. So if Pete's Pumps, like I say, is calling them pumps and trainers, is he calling them a running shoe? Is he talking about what terrain they might be good for? And then I would also read some of the reviews. So this has done some easy work for you, but I would read some of the reviews and see what's in there. There is another little tool that we can use as well. So if you do sell on Amazon, you can get a tool, which there's a paid version and a free version called Helium 10, which is this little symbol up here. It's a Chrome plugin. And you can see that it's given an evaluation score on the listing. Now, each marketplace has algorithms that they are working with and things they're trying to get you to do. So what I would not take from Amazon to your own website is the titles. I would use the titles again for keywords, but do not write a title that says men, woman, running shoes, sports trainers, breathable, lightweight sneakers for walking, gym, jogging, fitness, athletic, casual, because that's a terrible title. Unless, of course, you're selling on Amazon, in which case it's not. Because Amazon want that title to be 150 characters, I believe. I'm now losing the words. Yes, 150 characters. So it actually thinks this one is short. And it wants all the keywords in there. And that is not how you design your own website. But what you would do is have a nice title, and then you'd have a lot of these worked into the description or potentially into the bullet points. But if you do sell on Amazon and you put this in here, then this is really nifty and tells you how to get a great score. And that is an almost perfect score. In fact, it's just the title letting it down. Another valuable use of this particular tool, again, if we're going to take it off Amazon, are these calculators. So if you were considering selling on Amazon, you could put in the selling price that you're thinking of selling it for on Amazon, and the cost price, and it's going to work out the fees for you. So MFN is when you manually fulfill the order, you're doing that yourself, and FBA is when Amazon are going to do it. So if you wanted to keep all of your stock where you currently have it and just send it off when you sell something, you'd use this calculator. And if you did want to send your stock into Amazon, you'd use this calculator. The reason why there's two of them is the fee is far higher with FBA because you've got the storage cost as well, and it includes the postage cost and things like that as well. To give you an idea, a standard Amazon fee, depending on category, is about 15%. For myself, when I use FBA, it rises to about 29%. But that's solely going to depend on the size of your products, the weight of your products, and how long you leave them in storage. So there's not a hard and fast number for what is FBA going to cost you. You can also see sales data over a period of time, and inventory level and things like that. And you can actually open this up as an app, so you can see how many trainers that they are selling within, say, 30 days. And the beauty of that tool is you could decide that you can see a trend, you can see a growing market for it. In general, you may find that you think, well, they're selling lots, my product's comparable, I think I'm going to have a go at selling on Amazon. But equally, you can look for gaps in the market. So you can take products that you sell, search directly for them on Amazon, and see how many items are selling, and therefore whether you would like to sell on there at all. You may only do it at a certain point in the year, or you might not do it at all. Equally, it may be a good way to find a new brand that you want to bring into your business. So you could look at things that are selling really well. And basically right now, the big winners for Amazon is anything around sports and leisure, but equally people are doing it socially. So for being starved for so long, they're now coming together and wanting to work out together. So if you happen to be Pete's Pumps, now would be a really good time to potentially look at new brands that you might want to bring in. So if you were umming and ahhing about, say, taking on Nike trainers, for example, you could search those trainers. Or if you already stocked a brand, so Skechers, if you had Skechers in your range, in your online shop, but say you only took certain styles and you're wondering, oh, shall I take that another style? How does it sell? Then Amazon gives you a really nice snapshot into volume of sales. So if we take these two here on the end, these both women's trainers, but this low top trainer has a review score of over 15,000 versus this one's got 54. So it could be that this one only went on a week ago and is a brand new trainer. Or it could be that this is a much more sought after design that people like and regularly go back for. So if you didn't stock this one in your shop, you might want to, because it's not foolproof, but you can't get the data out the back end of somebody's website to see how many they are selling on their own dedicated site. And you can't do it to get that data out of their shop. But Amazon is giving you a little snapshot into what other people are doing. And then it can help you ask those questions and investigate new areas so that hopefully you can expand your own business. Now I'm going to try and swap back to the presentation. There we go. So that has been done in as a whistle top super fast little section there, but it is time for the Q&A. Ali, how did you want to do this? Do you want to take mics off and people ask, or?
I'll take my mic off and answer that. I was just typing in the chat, say, please pop any questions in the chat.
Sorry.
But, no, I think it's a really good plan. If anybody's got any questions around anything that Mish has been talking about, it's powerful, isn't it? We did have a quick look at that tool on our first session, but actually seeing it in action again in the Amazon context is incredibly helpful. So folks, please feel free just to pop your mics on if you've got a question for Mish. Everybody's a bit quiet this morning. We might have to warm them up a little bit more.
What's the name of that tool?
Sorry, John.
I was asking, I know it's really a basic question and I may have missed it. You have to forgive me because I'm still recovering from my child's cold. What's the name of that tool?
It's called Helium 10. So helium as in the balloon. Yeah, Helium 10 is the tool. And you get to use it, I think, like 50 times for free to do an investigation. And then there's a paid version and you can buy into certain elements of it or all of it. Or you can use a new email address and then get it for free again. But I didn't say that.
Why would you do that? I mean, it's not emails based on our website, is it?
Now I understand why there are those such random titles for certain things. when you're searching on Amazon for something. But that kind of makes sense to get, ram all of those keywords in.
Yes. Yeah, so that is something you wouldn't take back to your own website, because it would just be awful, and that's not going to translate well into sort of search engine optimization. So that bit is specific to Amazon, but the fact they've crammed all their keywords in there means you can think, right, okay, well, where would I put those keywords? Where would be appropriate? And there are some really lovely examples. In fact, Helen Round does it really nicely. She's a local Cornish retailer and designer, and she's got some listings, and they're really nicely done in terms of bringing those keywords down into the bullet points and things.
And I guess it distinguishes you as a brand, doesn't it? Because, for me, that, you're saying that a lot of the Chinese companies are going straight onto Amazon, and often those sort of descriptions are, there's no kind of power that sits behind the brand, but somebody like Helen will take the time to write them into something that's much more readable, I guess.
Yeah, and she's able to add in, so she has her own dedicated website, but also uses Amazon and things. And yeah, she's able to bring Helen into Amazon. So there's beautiful videos and descriptions. And again, she's done the trademarking. So you can only do the A+ content if you own the brand and you've trademarked it. But I think a standard trademark cost is like £180. And that's for your business. That's not them. That's for trademarking, not just for Amazon. But once that's done, you can enter that into Amazon. And then you can create this area which looks so much more like your business, and has that sort of feel, and you can get across the quality and things of your products. But I think it's also a bit of an eye-opener. If somebody can do that in Amazon, then are you maximizing what you can do on your own website? So it's that sort of reverse engineering. Can we bring it back? Do I have videos in there? Am I considering, are people able to know the weights? What Amazon does force you to do is like fill in lots and lots of information about the product, so dimensions, weight, and everything else. But if you're buying something and you're buying it from a distance, you really need to know a lot about it. We've had this very fast transition. So makeup counters, when I ran a similar presentation for you last year, I had pictures that are taken in the air. I don't know, it can't have been an airport. I don't know where it was, a train station or somewhere, of these empty makeup counters with no testers on and no products, and don't you dare think about touching anything. Well, that hasn't really recovered. But the thought of buying a foundation, for example, online baffles me, but we've got to make that transition. So if you can buy foundation, which is it's got to match your skin, or ideally is going to match your skin online, then I think regardless what you sell, it can be sold online. But it's just about giving the customer the confidence, whether that be within your returns or your additional customer service, and how you're going to facilitate that.
Cool. Is there anybody in the room with really good experiences of selling on Amazon, or anybody who's maybe had a bit of a dip their toe in the water and maybe a less positive experience?
Yeah, in fact, it'd be great to hear from anyone who's had a less than positive, and just see if we can pick anything out of that. That would be useful. Super quiet group. Maybe
the 4 people that were using it aren't in the room today.
maybe not. Maybe not. Is there anybody in the room who has considered Amazon but has reservations?
Hiya, we have. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, we have, because we supply products that are made elsewhere, and it just seems like Amazon is like a race to the bottom for pricing. So for us to make any decent profit margin, it just seems kind of like pointless, for the sense that it's just going to cost us more money and time, and posting it, than it is worth our while actually going to the effort of like listing everything. So we do really well with our eBay shop.
Yeah.
And we've got the products listed on our own website as well, but hands down eBay wins. every single time when it comes to kind of like generating the sales. And even though Amazon is a little bit cheaper than eBay, so yeah, that's why we haven't listed products on Amazon.
So if we take your the products that you do sell, are the identical product, all of the identical products on Amazon currently?
Yeah.
Okay. What is perhaps worth doing? So I sell some quite large brands, for example, Sloggies, and I won't put all of my stock onto Amazon because some of them are priced too low and it wouldn't be viable, and I'm not interested in doing it and not making any money. But what we will do on a fairly regular basis is go and have a look for the gaps. So you will find, particularly with the issues around stock at the moment and availability, there can be gaps of say 4 weeks or 6 weeks where basically no other retailer has got a particular size, color, SKU in stock. So we can take advantage for that 4 to 6 weeks and sell it. And you know when it's over because the sales stop. So you don't have to be in that race to the bottom. So yeah, we will quite regularly check, price check things. Or sometimes we'll find that the only retailers who have got it are not within the UK. So you've got a time delay of it getting to the customer, or you've got a massive difference in pricing because if it's coming over from the States, there's obviously a lot more customs and things involved. So sometimes the use of Amazon is about finding the gap if you're in something that's really competitive. And there are some times when it's not going to be viable. But yeah, okay, there are sometimes gaps so it's worth revisiting it and looking at, but it's going to be industry specific, product specific, and then what the supply is like in your particular area.
Yeah, so we supply garages and workshops B2B, and then we also supply like the end users online with a brand called Liquid Molly, for example.
Yeah.
And we are known to be kind of like the fuel treatment experts in the Southwest, and then kind of like it's getting like more further afield. And yeah, it's just it's really demoralizing, isn't it? When you kind of like you look at, you know exactly how much other people are paying for a product because we're on like the best tariff, and they're like literally making pennies out of it as well. So
yeah. We had a really similar incident. Actually, it was on eBay. There was a particular lingerie company and they were undercutting everybody. And I demonstrated back to the brands they were making pence, and I literally mean pence. Eventually, they went under. They got their comeuppance for it. I think what they were trying to do was clear out the market, and they thought that everyone else would leave, and then they could jump the prices back up. But there were too many people to let that happen, and they ran out of money in the process. But the other thing you can do is go and look at those listings on Amazon and then take that information back and see if you can add value and fine tune your own website and your eBay listings even further. And if, actually, no, I'll cover that in the next section. But yeah, so, those keywords that people are, so you could go and search those identical products, go down to that review section and have a look at what people are saying, because there might just be a few things that you haven't considered that would be valuable because they're a search term that's being used regularly to find that product, or it's appearing in the reviews.
Okay.
And the questions, if you get people continually asking, is this suitable for, then if you add that to your eBay listing and your own website, then when they're looking at it at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're fast asleep, but they'd like to buy it, that question is answered and the purchase can go ahead.
Exactly. Those frequently asked questions that come up are really useful topics to write about in blogs as well. So, thank you for that. I'm a big fan of your shop, by the way. It's hard to come to you as well. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Fantastic.
And that's actually a really good point. You could use the comments in those reviews and the content in those reviews to go and write content. So blog posts, if somebody's regularly asking a question or it becomes an interesting area, so, lightweight footwear, you could have a bit of a comparison of some of your trainers, if we go back to the case study, and how they compare and what things would be good for, and then you can build from there and that can grow. But that's, a bit of a side angle.
Mitch, Robert was saying he's had a bad experience on eBay. I don't know whether you wanted to expand on that, Robert.
Yeah, the problem wasn't with the actual the product. It was actually when we went to deliver the product, and the courier you use to deliver the product doesn't always come up to scratch. We had a guy who'd ordered a vegan hamper, but he didn't. When we tried to contact him, he was never at home, and when it happened that the parcel had to go to a collection point, he couldn't get to the collection point, so we had to reissue the parcel, get it sent back to us, and reissue the products.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately at the moment delivery companies are hugely under pressure, and then also using a lot of agency staff, which may be lacking in training or just not following company policy to the same high standards. I mean, it sounds like there's a bit of an issue with the end consumer as well, if he's not in and they don't want to leave something that's going to go off. But I mean, we're battling at the moment with DHL that are putting delivery times of 7-8 o'clock in the evening on my bricks and mortar shop, and they know we're not there, and they know it's on our account that we're closed at 5:30. But what it allows to happen is the drivers are allowed to finish when they finish their routes. And by putting businesses at the end of the day which are closed, they can drive past and take a photo somewhere down the road and call it done. Then we had the second delivery come on a Sunday. Again, they know we're not open, and then the stock went back to the supplier. And it's been a sort of a continuous kind of battle. I think all you can do is keep communication as open as possible with the courier and actually shop around if possible. But it does sound like that equally there was an issue with the consumer the customer not being at home. And there are things you can do. So Rick Stein launched their food boxes this year. I think they launched them in January, like the cook at home boxes, and they've got a lot of like raw fish and things like that in them. And they have a huge sticker on it that says must, like bright red, that says must be delivered today and must be left if there is nobody home for a signature. It is not to go back to the depot. And I guess they take the hit on the fact that a few people could say it must have been stolen off my doorstep, but equally there's probably a photograph being taken of it being left on the doorstep, and that's something that you click to say you're okay with when you buy the product. So that's perhaps one way you could limit it, in the sense that this hamper is going to be left on your doorstep even if your doorstep is on a main road. That's then, it's up to you to kind of manage that situation, the customer to then manage that situation of how it comes in, and then having a look at your packaging and seeing if that could have more things in there to keep the items cool or fresh. But yes, it's a bit of a tricky, it's a tricky one. And there is one more comment before I jump, one more question before I jump onto the next session about how do you find those gaps? Would you mind just elaborating on that one slightly more? I'm presuming we're talking about Amazon, but which gaps in particular? And then I can give you a better answer.
Before about searching for the gaps in the Amazon to showcase your products, how do you go to find them? How do you know when to put the products that you think that Amazon customers are going to want here, as opposed to other ones? Excuse me, I'm just recovering from a bad cold.
That's okay. So do you have own branded products, or are you selling unbranded or somebody else's brand?
We have both.
Okay.
We have products that we do ourselves and products that we source from local companies.
Yeah.
But at the moment, we do not sell anything on Amazon or eBay.
Okay, so I would break it down. So the brands which belong to somebody else, I would literally type those in and be quite specific. Like, look at the individual SKU. So look at the size of it, the color of it, what separates it from the other pieces in the range. So you're looking at an individual. Because if we go back to the example of the Skechers trainers, we had a massive difference in 2 ladies trainers. So if you just looked at it as a whole, you won't find the gap. So have a look at the individual product and see what the sales are. See if the product isn't listed at all. That's brilliant, because you get to write the listing. The negative side of Amazon is if 5 of you sell the same product, you basically share a listing. And if someone else has done a really bad job of writing it, it's quite a hassle to get it changed. You can get it changed, but you have to demonstrate that what you're saying is better than what they said or is more accurate. So if you find it's not on there at all, then you can put it on there. Now, Amazon charge you £25 for basically going on there with them, and then you can put on as many listings as you like. So you can put those listings on and then see what happens. So I would put a test of say 10 or 15 on there and see what happens. I go back a couple of weeks later and basically optimize them and see if there's any gaps. And then you can decide. Things, in my experience, sell better or quicker and in a higher volume with FBA because it allows them to use Prime. There is a thing called seller fulfilled Prime, where you can be selling things that are in the Prime program, but you're dispatching, but the rules around it are really tight in terms of you've got to do same day dispatch up to about 4 o'clock, which might not work with when your couriers come and go anyway. And then for your own brands, I would look at similar items in your area. So again, if we looked at, in fact, I'm going to swap over to skincare for a second. If we looked at, say, skincare, face cream, night face creams, for example, you could see how they did as a general area, but what are they lacking, or what properties does yours have that they don't have? And then I would initially go on and put a few again on there and build that listing and just test that market out. And then I would quite quickly trademark it and build your A+ content, because the trademark is yours, separately anyway. And you're not paying any more to Amazon to build that area and put those listings on. So it may be an experiment that you try and it doesn't particularly work. But it often does work, and it's about building up strings in your bow. So it's not all on your dedicated website or all on your bricks and mortar. You've got various channels because so many people are within Amazon. And again, if you've got an unknown brand, people aren't searching for the name of your brand because they don't know it yet. They are just searching for things, like I said, about the rustic shelves. They know what they kind of want, but they don't know who sells it and what it's called. And depending on what you sell, there could be some, really interesting niche marketplaces. They're going to have a much lower level of traffic, but you could have a much higher concentration of customers who want a thing that things like you're selling. The difficulty is you've obviously then perhaps in a pool of lots of people who are selling similar things. But I remember on this point being at my first ever lingerie trade show and ringing my dad up and saying, Dad, I think I've made a terrible mistake. There's lots of lingerie companies in the country. And he's like, yeah. So you've got all these people in one room, now spread them back out over the entire country. He was like, you're in the most concentrated pool. That's fine. And it can feel like that because if you're on that dedicated platform, you're like, well, look at all these other sellers. But that's almost the reason people come to shop there, because they get that choice. So Weybridge at the moment has maybe 4 or 5 interior design shops. And there was, people were saying, well, isn't that really annoying for you as an owner of one of them? And they said, no, it's brilliant because we're becoming a bit of a destination. People are now willing to get in their car and drive an hour, hour and a half to come to Weybridge because they're not visiting one shop now, they're visiting 4 or 5. So it's value and it's worth the journey. So it's now, it's worth people visiting that marketplace to see what you're up to. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
That's okay.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you. Some great questions and great comments there. That was really interesting. Mish, you're going to move on now, aren't you?
Yes.
And you're going to talk a little bit about stock control.
I am, yes. So stock control. I guess firstly, it's the considerations. What do you want it for? Because what you want to use it for is going to massively change what option you go with. So is stock control just about making sure you don't run out? Or is it about making sure you haven't got hundreds of thousands of pounds tied up in stock in a warehouse that potentially, if it's, it's perishable, is going to go out of date? Is this about forward planning, your production planning, or your ordering? In fact, if it's okay, Ali, I wouldn't just mind if people would put into the messages, what is it that the key reason for having a stock control system at all? What are they using it for? because that will change slightly how I do the next little bit, if you don't mind popping your comments in there.
So what is it you use a stock control system for?
What's the main thing you're trying to get out of it?
Okay. Okay.
So forward planning has come up. And when I'm talking about your system, that could be a pen and paper. It could be an Excel spreadsheet. It could be the back end of your Shopify website. I don't mind what your system is you're using. What, keeping customers happy, tracking prices, keeping an eye on margins. Okay, so I mean, carry on chatting at, and tapping away in there, but I'll just carry on for a second. So when roll the clock back several years ago, we were growing quite quickly. We are selling on multiple platforms. And for me, it was about A, not selling something on a platform that I didn't have, and B, not being out of stock and being completely unaware of it. Because obviously there were missed sales in there, and then and obviously being able to forecast forwards. And I bought into a retail fashion specific stock management program, and it was a terrible mistake. It may well have worked for many other people. It wasn't going to work for lingerie because we have a unique issue, which is the number of sizes within one product. So this was designed for clothing, but to give you an idea, shoes might come in 7 to 10 sizes, t-shirts might come in the same, bras come in up to 100. There were only 13 boxes in the matrix for sizes, so we couldn't use it, we couldn't go forwards with it, and it was a bit of a nightmare. But actually, when I compared it anyway to other things out there and other options available, it was actually cheaper to have a dedicated member of staff whose job it was to look after stock control. And inevitably, regardless of sort of what option you go with, very few options cut out humans altogether. I'm just going to move the chat a second. Because if we say you're going to use something available within Shopify, but you have a physical retail presence, or not, you're going to be scanning it in and you're going to be scanning it out, and if you miss those scans, you're gonna miss it. Equally, the bit where it often can go wrong is perhaps the exchanges and the returns, because when somebody's just, oh, can I swap this for this? Has it gone back through the process the way it should? And the answer is often no. And I remember being at the Drapers Digital Conference a few years ago, and the team from Marks and Spencer's talking about the fact that they just added on this additional piece to their stock control system at the cost of hundreds of thousands of pounds. And it was now going to allow them to pull availability for their e-commerce site from their shops around the country. And it was going to be accurate down to 3 pieces. And my jaw kind of hit the floor, because I assumed they had that. I assumed they'd had it for 25 years, to be quite honest. But whether you are really tiny or really very large, the same problems crop up. And actually, I think the bigger you are, the bigger those problems become, because everything is moving faster and the inaccuracies can basically grow. Also, so previous to owning Mish and the Retail Fixers, I worked as a senior manager for Morrison's. And until not that long ago, production planning. So how many loaves of bread, and maybe it still happens this day, how many loaves of bread are going to be made in the bakery, the in-house bakery? There was a printed sheet. This might now be digital, but nevertheless, every day there was a printed sheet, and it had in the corner of the box for each item what was sold on this week last year. And basically the system was to make what they made last year plus 10%. And then at the end of the day, they'd make a note as to how many over they were, or if they'd sold out. And then that would form next year's plan. It was by no means foolproof whatsoever, because key dates don't fall at the same time every year. And it absolutely did not take into account seasonality. So much of my training was at Newquay. That went at that point from one of the smallest stores in the country to the largest store for 17 weeks of the year. I think topping, turning over 2 million a week in its highest weeks, when you consider things like Run to the Sun and things like that. So working on what happened this time last year, or the other bit of data that happened was a 12-week kind of uplift. So it was looking at what happened in the last 12 weeks and basically upping from the week before. Again, if you're going to do it over 12 weeks, you've missed the entire summer. By the time you've ramped up, it's the end of September and you're throwing a lot of things in the bin. So lots and lots of big companies still have issues. Many of my suppliers have battled with stock issues for years, and that is no easier now than it was. In fact, it is worse. And this is a consideration in terms of your stock control when you're using it for forward planning. Is I would actually bring in more human elements. I would have conversations. So for some of you, you're making products. So when I'm talking about stock versus raw materials, you're probably using it to sort of, when you know you've sold a certain amount of items, it's time to order the raw materials to make the next batch. But you need to be having conversations with the suppliers of those raw materials to find out what their supply chain is looking like. I know one of the local companies that sells steel. They've had fantastic sales, but they don't have much stock because it's sat in the ports waiting for it to be driven to their warehouses to then be distributed to the clients. One of the products I sell is a range of bras for teenagers. So it's like the first bras, the school bras, things like that. We've just been told there was a delivery coming in September, which is basically too late because kids went back to school in September. But actually it lasted a matter of days. They're choosing to move warehouses, and the next stock amount of stock isn't coming in until January. So we've got to come up with another plan, because quite frankly, we're losing sales because we've got a whole section missing. So have as many conversations as you can, find out what the delivery dates are looking like, find out if you can forward order or put back orders in, as it's called. Speak to humans, build human relationships, because if you can get the customer service assistant on side, that can often get you a little bit further up in the queue. So that human relationship is invaluable within sort of your stock control system. So fulfillment. So order fulfillment is the process of storing inventory, picking and packing products, and shipping online orders to customers. That's it in a sentence. Now, this process can be completed in-house, or it can be outsourced to a third-party logistics provider. So in-house options, curbside pickup. Now, this is not one that we particularly use much in the UK. It's bigger in other countries. But literally you'd be bringing it outside your warehouse or your shop and you'd be handing it over to the customer. Home delivery, exactly what it sounds. Same day pickup. So they are buying on your website and then they are coming in to collect it. The difference between this and buy online, pick up in store is same day pickup needs to be in stock. Buy online, pick up in store doesn't necessarily need to be in stock. So that's something you can use if you know that your supplier has it. To maximize sales, you can essentially be advertising things when you don't have them in stock, but this is going to rely on a supply chain with stock in it. And the biggest things I think you can do around fulfillment to sort of streamline it is to review your processes. So if we're looking at these in-house processes, within my business, we were struggling many years ago with just the amount of time that it was taking to get things packaged and ready to go before our Royal Mail delivery came, pickup came. So first thing we did is ask for Royal Mail if we could have a later pickup. But we also found really basic things like whether we were printing labels or we were folding the packet, how many times we were folding up a packing slip and putting it in a dispatch wallet made a huge difference. Folding it 6 times instead of folding it once actually starts to cut down time. The type of stickers we were using and the size of them and things like that. And I would also, we had our postage bags all out and we had clickers on them. So instead of counting things in, we're just pressing clickers. We're then weighing whole bags, not weighing individual items. All of this streamline the process. And we probably started doing that when we were only sending out maybe 20, 30 a day, but it meant on the big days when we had 200, we were in the best possible position. At the same time, I would know your limits, so know what your top end is, and adjust what your offering is to sort of maximize your capacity. So you might not offer so many services, you might streamline it, or it's about maintaining customer experience and managing their expectations. So if you're overwhelmed with capacity, it's a great problem to have, but it can very quickly become a negative issue. So think about what you can do and explain it, share that information on your website, say, you know, this is all we can do, and be honest with your customers. They're really liking at the moment, there's a really strong wanting to buy local vibe. So let them know what buying local and buying from humans and UK manufacturing is all about, and the challenges that you're facing. Almost the more you tell them, the more they've got your back. And external fulfillment. So you've got drop shipping, which the products are on your website, but when the sale comes through, you almost send that to the stockist or the manufacturer, and they actually dispatch it on your behalf straight to the customer. You never see it. You potentially are going to deal with the returns. It depends what your setup is. It could go back to them. It could be coming to you. Third-party logistics. So that would be somebody like James and James. So they have integrations with Facebook, Amazon, Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento. They store your products, and they pick it and they pack it and they send it out. They can deal with that internationally. They also do the customer service management, and they do the returns management as well. So this could be really useful if the margins are there all year round, or just a certain uplift. You've got Amazon FBA. So whether you trade on Amazon or not, you could trade on them for a short time to be able to utilize this. This has been invaluable for my company, because we have a particular product which is very seasonal. They're called bandelettes. They're an anti-chafing thigh band made of light lace, and whenever there's a bank holiday and it's hot, the sales jump up hugely. Now we have the capacity in my business to dispatch about 200 items a day, but the bandelettes a couple of summers ago topped at about 400 a day. We couldn't have done it. We even at starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, we couldn't have got them out. We'd have missed a lot of sales, but by having them in Amazon, the sales are probably larger because people could get them on Prime, they could get them in time for the weekend, but also it was just done. Yeah, they took 29% instead, but I mean, I would have had to employ another member of staff, train them up, magic some new space within my building, you know, things that I couldn't do, and I certainly couldn't do on a moment's notice. And then eBay have launched their own fulfillment service as well. So if you aren't comfortable with Amazon, or but you do trade on eBay, or you'd be more comfortable there, they have a similar option available. And all of these things can be really valuable, whether it's about growth, and this is a continued pattern of, you know, expansion, and it could be about filling a gap until you move on to your next premises, or until you take on your next member of staff, or this could be part of your growth strategy. Equally, seasonality. This could just fit in to help you out for 1, 2, 3 months of the year. In terms of many businesses are biggest at Christmas. Mine is biggest in the spring, summer, which means a lot of the fulfillment options have more capacity in the spring, summer, and less around Christmas. So you can potentially get better prices or a slightly better service as well. So it's just to give you some ideas about how these things that are out there can sort of help you grow. They all come at a cost, and it's up to you to work out whether your margins allow for those costs. And then we've got cost in terms of money, and cost in terms of losing your customer to somebody else, and their customer experience with your company as well to consider. And again, we flew through that, but we do have time for some questions. So any questions on those bits we've just covered?
We're actually, Mish, there might be some questions. I'm happy to pick them up, but we can go into a breakout room now.
Oh yes, sorry, this is meant to say break.
That's okay. That's okay.
Sorry.
No, it's always good to pick up the immediate questions. But often, I mean, you've given us brilliant information there, Mish. So we're just working all of that, digesting it all. But we've got a couple of questions for you in the breakout room. We're just going to pop you into that shortly, and there'll be enough time for grab a cuppa as well, because we'll be back in at 11. So we've just got about 15 minutes. But what we want to be able to talk about in the breakout rooms is understanding where is your pinch point in the year, and how much are those pinch points hampering your sales. So that's the kind of conversation that we want. And again, I think a lot of what Mish has talked us through there is, will give us lots of food for thought in terms of how we might be able to tackle those things. Jules, are you ready in the background to pop us into the breakout room? I'm going to give you I'm going to give you till 11 so that everybody can have a bit of a chat in the breakout room and also grab a cuppa. And what we'll do is when we come back in, again, stack those questions up for Mish. We've got a bit of time for Q&A with Mish, and a bit of feedback from the rooms. So there'll be a invite coming up shortly to take you into the room, and we'll see you back in the main room here at 11:05. Thank you.
Is that okay, Bex?
Yeah,
Hi, Nathan.
good.
Cool. Hi, Nathan. I don't know if you've seen your screen to pop on your screen. Have you got a notification to put you into a breakout room? Yeah. I'll move you in now, Bex, into room 1 with Andy. With Andy and Holly.
Will you keep an eye out for Jacko and pop him in with Ali when he turns up?
So you're going in with Andy and Holly. Cool. I'll put you into room 1 now.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Jaco. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Jaco? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you now. Everyone's in a breakout room and having a coffee. So I'm going to pop you in with Ali and Mish, if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. I'll pop you in there. Oh, actually,
Okay.
looks like you've received, have you received an invite
Yes,
to
I've
a All right.
Yeah, all good, Jules. All good. We've got everybody where they need to be.
They're all still in their rooms, I think. I think they're just still getting their coffees. Oh, here's Robert.
Just heading back in. Cool. Okay. Andy, Holly, are you doing feedback?
Did you take some notes, Andy?
I've got a little bit, but we can have a joint go, can't we?
Yeah, cool.
Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you had enough time to grab a cuppa in that last session. There we go, everybody's back in now, I think. That's fantastic. So just a quick recap. Holly, Andy, you were talking about pinch points in the years, things that are hampering sales. What's your feedback from the room?
I think, Holly, we had a bit of a mix, didn't we, of people without seasonality per se, but probably from launching ranges at certain times. So their own production was one issue of judging how much to make, getting that right. We're probably more on Robert's side, obviously 1,000% up last year, but a lot of issues going into Christmas this year. So huge demand at Christmas for hampers, but with supply issues for stock, and then not quite sure what delivery issues is going to be going into the time of year. So quite a tough Christmas potentially there for Robert.
Okay.
Yeah, and thoughts about things like supply chain issues, and that's also sort of affecting them, not just because of seasonal sort of influx in sales, but just of the current state and issues going on as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's, Jay started us with that warning, didn't she, at the beginning of the session? It's knowing what it's gonna look like around stock. Okay, thank you guys. Just before we went into the room, we had a question there from Nicole. Nicole's back. That's brilliant. So for Mish, got any advice and tips on counting stock? So Nicole's keen to know what gadgets you use. You mentioned a scanner and a clicker as well, I think. She's wanting to get something because 2/3 of their products have a barcode. So Mish, can you pick that one up for us?
Yeah, so scanning them could be really useful, particularly if there's lots of different products. But we go fairly manual with this kind of thing. But one, for example, though, we know what the outer, or we've put it in an outer, so we know how big it is. So the bandelettes I was talking about that go off to Amazon, I know in a particular box they will hold 200, so they're stored in 200s. So therefore we're only counting the sort of outers rather than the individual units. And it depends also when we're talking about counting for what purpose. So if it's for dispatching that day, we need absolute accuracy on how many parcels. That's where the clicker is coming in. If it's for your stock take, there is a certain element of estimation going on there because you can do some averaging. So you can say, right, those boxes should all be roughly that size. If it's for stock control, we normally do it again in 2 levels. So we put the number in correctly, and then we kind of sanity check it when it gets to a low point. So when we're down to those final 50, we will do a manual count and just check that they are exactly what they should be. And that will be done again when it gets down to like sort of 10 or 20, depending on the speed of that item moving. But initially they're counted in full when they arrive into the building. We put ours into the back end of our Shopify website. So even if the product isn't being sold on there, everything goes in there. And that's what we're using to kind of manage our stock. And then, yeah, we see the alerts from there, and then we go and check things manually if necessary. So there isn't a foolproof solution. There are lots of solutions and options you can go with. It's just finding out what works for you, your team. I'm particularly bad at counting things for some unknown. I'm very good at maths. I'm terrible at counting. So I'm normally, my staff would prefer me not to be involved in stock takes. So yeah, finding out who is good at what job is also really important. And yeah, keep people like me away from it.
And you do the shop floor and then the warehouse, so keep the stock take to separate areas, is that right?
I mean, we do it, everything is so it depends what you mean. Again, if we're doing it for the purpose of knowing how many units we've got to be able to sell, yes, we're counting one, we're counting the other, but the figure is kind of going in one place, and the stock that is on my shop floor is in the back end of my Shopify. For us, the warehouse and the shop are in the same place. They're all part of the same unit in the same building. So we are regularly selling things online, which are being warehoused, if you like, on the shop floor. So do I know exactly where that unit is? Yes, but that's more about because I've got a feel for what's going on in my business and where we store things, as opposed to me looking at the software and it telling me, right, that is located in a certain area. With more growth, or if I had 2 units and we are just about at capacity in terms of storage, I would need to be making much more of a note of, you know, which unit that stock was in. So you're not going from one to another. But essentially we treat it all as one. Cool,
thank you. Any other questions for Mish before we move on to our next section? I think Mish is going to be with us for a little for the rest of the section, so don't worry if it doesn't come to mind now, but pop it in the chat and we will pick it up towards the end of the session. So moving on, I now would like to welcome Jacko. I did explain, we gave him a good introduction at the beginning, and we're really excited to be able to share and understand some of Jacko's experience. As you could tell from the intro, he's worked in lots of different sectors, and e-commerce is his bag. So Jacko, good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody.
How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. As I said before, I've got my 7-year-old ill at home today, so if he runs in and comes and says hello to everybody, he'll be a quick in and out.
Well, we kind of want to see him now.
He's playing Xbox at the moment, so yes.
Oh, okay. You might get away with an hour or so. Cool. So Jacko, it's brilliant to have you on board. It's great to have your insight and your experience. And you're going to talk to us a little bit about customers, a bit about data, a bit about systems, and planning and priorities. So I guess, you know, across your career, you've done the seasonality thing. You know, you've kind of done it all, haven't you?
Yeah, so my first 12 years was in sort of stores, in retail in stores, and then sort of the next 12 years it's been e-commerce focused. But I do think that sort of that line between online and offline for customers have kind of disappeared these days, to be honest with you. Customers just want one constant customer experience. I've worked in various sectors as well, so anything from fashion to tourism to gifting and now an academic book. So a variety of industries. And although those industries vary a lot, I think the fundamentals all stay the same, doesn't matter what industry you're in.
Fantastic. And I think you're whatever questions our audience have, you know, you're probably going to be able to draw on some experience somewhere. So I will invite you to share your screen, Jacko, and take us away.
I can't share my screen. It's been disabled at the moment.
Oh, okay. We'll frantically try and enable that for you.
Try it again now, Jacko.
Let's try again. Yes, there you go.
Okay, cool.
Do you all see that?
Yeah, we can. That's preview screen.
Yes, I'm just trying to move the top bar. Sorry. There you go. There you go. Is that better?
Perfect.
No, it won't move.
That sometimes it takes a minute to if you if you click on the slide itself, does it give you a little slider bar at the bottom?
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you. So I kind of just already covered that kind of my experience, where I come from. The last thing I would say is my surname is not very British, as you probably have seen. So yeah, I'm originally from South Africa, worked, studied there, and then moved over here about 22 years ago. So I've been in the UK for about 22 years and in Cornwall for about 5 years. So loving life in Cornwall. So just to kick off, so how do you grow your e-commerce revenue? So very, very big and wide question. I think in a short answer is, the bad news is there is no silver bullet. I remember a board member saying that to me once when I did my first big presentation. The answer is there's no silver bullet. But the good news is there is lots and lots of different things that you can do, and there's lots of opportunities to grow online sales. And I think there's never been a better time to sell online with everything that's been happening in the last 20 months. Online sales has just absolutely rocketed, and all the predictions are for that not to change. Some of the latest data I saw that says 60% of people won't actually change their shopping behaviors. Now, take that with a pinch of salt. But I think online is definitely, if it wasn't before, it's definitely here to stay, and it's sort of moved a few years ahead. So there's a lot of opportunities to grow your business. And I'm going to cover a few things today, mainly sort of looking at how to convert people while they're on the site. I know you've had other sessions about how to get people to the site and things like that. So today is sort of mainly around sort of looking at your customers and looking on site and the data. So I think starting off is there's a lot of things to consider. And I think these are kind of the questions we're going to sort of look at today and ask and sort of cover in the breakout groups as well. So what are your customers saying about their experience with you? What does the data tell you? Do you have the correct systems in place to grow the business? Sort of what's the priorities going forward, and what's the plans going forward? So looking at customers first, and I know you've covered loads on customers in the previous session, so I'll look at two aspects of it. So first of all is, what do you actually know about your customers? What age are they? Where do they come from? Do they come back to you? Do they shop with you more than often? How often do they shop with you? Are they male or female? All those kinds of questions you want to know. And the more you know about your customers, the more you can make sure that the experience with you is as positive as possible, but also make it as targeted as possible. And the more happy customers you've got, the more customers are going to return. And it's more than just on the website. So if you think about all the touch points you have with your customers, so customer service, digital marketing, email, social media, customer reviews, post-purchase deliveries becoming more and more important, and especially with everything that's going on at the moment, returns, and it's kind of thinking about all those customer interactions. And as we spoke at the start, is that online and offline is blurring. Customers just want the same experience, whether they go on in store, whether they go online, whether they receive an email or see something on social media. They just want that consistency between all the interactions. Most businesses I've worked for is absolutely obsessed with recruiting new customers. And I think you need new customers. Obviously, you need new customers to grow your business, and it's exceptionally important. But it shouldn't be at the expense of your loyal current customers. And a lot of businesses I've worked for has been absolutely so focused on getting new customers, they forget about their loyal customers that come back and shop more often. Now, some businesses are absolutely dependent on new customers. So when I was at Visit Britain, over 90% of all our revenue came from new customers. Yeah, you don't take that many trips to Britain, so it's just the nature of the business. But most businesses, in my experience, have a good split between new customers and returning customers. And it's actually, how do you service both and maintain that? Certainly, in all the roles I've seen, over 50% of revenue come from 20 to 25% of your sessions on your website. So those 20, 25 sessions of returning customers can sometimes deliver more than 50% of your revenue. So you can't ignore your loyal customers. And it's how you treat them. Do you give them loyalty programs? Is it loyalty points? Is it special offers just for them? Is it something on their birthday? Refer a friend, let them do their marketing for you. Loyal customers that love a brand would absolutely talk about it and kind of do the marketing for you. So it's all those kinds of things to think about. Actually, how can you give your loyal customers a better experience, but actually work with them in some ways as well. And I know it takes work, I know it takes resource, and it's another thing to think about, and it's another thing to do, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. It could be that you start with something small, get a selection of customers, and do some special offer for them or something for their birthday. Look at what that does. Look at the return on that, analyze it, and then sort of take it step by step. You don't have to jump in with 2 feet and do a massive promotion or something, but you can do it bit by bit and work on that. There's also lots of tools out there you can use. So one that I've used recently is HubSpot. I'm not sure if any of you got experience with HubSpot, but it's not an expensive. So I think there's actually a free version as well. It's less than £50 a month for the first step of the paid version, and that gives you all the data you need, segmentation. It does your emails and everything from that one system. So there's just an example of one system, but there's lots of systems out there, and we'll talk about systems a bit later. Just thinking more specifically about Q4, delivery is going to be so much more important this year. I think with everything that's going on and has been going on and now going on with petrol and the supply chain, which I know you guys have spoken a lot about, delivery is going to be, I think, one of the things that people are going to look more at this year when they do their online shopping. And it's really about that communication and making sure that your proposition is absolutely clear to people. And also thinking about what promotions and activities you do. I remember sitting in a presentation once by the guy that started the Boots loyalty program, which is now one of the most successful loyalty programs in the UK. And he was telling us about Boots did a promotion once. And it was big bag of nappies, 24 nappies, very easy promotion, buy one, get one half price in their stores. And when they looked after the data after a week, they saw that some stores, their sales have doubled, and some stores, it had absolutely no impact. And they just couldn't understand. They couldn't understand why, it's a great offer. And in the areas, specifically in the areas where they thought this promotion was going to do really well, it just didn't have any uplift in sales. So he actually went to some of those stores and he sat in the store to look at what customers did. And he said within 5 minutes, he realized why the promotion didn't work. So in your out of town stores where people come with their cars and mums come and they've got big trolleys, they just load up and put nappies in. Within 5 minutes, you realized in inner town stores and on the high street, mums came with their prams, they had a baby, they maybe had another child. Now you tell them you can buy one, you get one half price. They looked at it and they didn't have any way to put the second bag of nappies. So actually most of them walked out without buying anything because they've kind of felt that they didn't qualify for the offer in some way. So sometimes just those little things where you think, just think from a customer's perspective. If you're going to do an offer, if you're going to communicate something, just put yourself in the customer's shoes. We're all customers all the time as well. Just think about those offers and those promotions and activities you're going to do and actually how is customers going to perceive that. And the last thing I would see is payment methods. So PayPal is now 32% of all UK payments. In Europe, it's even more. I think Europe, it's alternative payments now about 40%. In the UK, it's targeted to grow to 40-45% in the next 2 years. So just think about all the payment methods that you offer customers. Is PayPal one of those? Is alternative payment methods one of those? It's heartbreaking that you get people to the pay point and then their payment method isn't there, so they can't pay, so they go somewhere else. So I think it's just something else to consider. What payment methods do people want, and do you have the right ones that your customers want? I absolutely love this image. I think sometimes image says so much more than words can. If you can all see that, but it just shows you sometimes what we think and actually what customers think. And the second bit about customers is really about what does the customer think of the online experience that they receive from your website or your online store. Have you asked your customers? Focus groups, small focus group, it doesn't have to be formal, it can be quite informal, it can be easy, it can be surveys on the website, and just get your customers' feedback. And I'm going to explain this with something that I did a few years ago when I worked at Visit Britain as an example. We sold travel cards, the London travel card, all over the world, and we sold millions of pounds of them, and they were really popular. It was a best-selling product. But we noticed that in our two biggest countries, and in France and Germany, the conversion was really, really bad for them. A lot lower than it should have been, a lot lower for other products. And it was dropping. People just weren't buying them at the level that we expected them to buy. And these were our two biggest markets. So of course, we all went into a boardroom and discussed the issue. Sitting in London, we knew exactly what our customers in France and Germany wanted. And we made some decisions and we made some plans and we changed the website. And of course, nothing changed because we didn't know what our customers wanted. So we then did a bit of customer research. We actually got some customers, we got them online, and we asked them and we looked at the journeys they did. And sometimes it's the smallest, simplest things that you don't think about that stops customers from buying from you. The reason that the French and German customers didn't buy from us was because they didn't understand the words zones and off-peak. So travel cards, if you know them in London, you sell them as off-peak and on-peak, and you have the 6 zones, 1 to 6 zones. So we were talking about off-peak and zones all over the page because we live in London, we know what they are. And these words didn't actually completely exist in those languages, so they didn't understand what we meant. So you could actually see people coming to those product pages, they're reading those words, they don't understand what they are, and they just left the page. They didn't try to understand what they were. We changed those words, we changed the content completely, we explained what those things were and actually customized those content for those two countries. And actually that did make the difference, and that saw the conversion going. So I think just really think about customer experience. You know, have you done something to make it easier for yourself, or actually is it what your customers want? Because, and ask your customers, if you don't know, just go and ask them. They will give you the answer, they will be honest, and then you can build from there and you can take the customer feedback on board. And it's also not a thing you do once. I think that customer communication, keep asking them, do something new, and keep on talking to your customers is so, so important. And then just sort of go to a quick breakout group. So a question is what do I know about my customers? So just, you know, think about what you know about your customers and actually what you want to know about them to help you personalize their journey and make their journey better for them.
Jackie, thank you. It's a great question, and it's a really good time, I think, to think about it again. So we are just going to do a very short breakout room on this one. So we will pop you in now and bring you back at 11:35, if that's okay. I'm just going to do a quick 5 minutes. So Jules, if you want to press that button.
Do you want me to join the breakout group? No.
I was on mute. Sorry, if you want to press your breakout button, Jacko, you'll go in with Ali and Mish.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Do you want to just give it again? So I've closed it down.
Let's have a look. That's weird. I can't now. What I'll do is I'll have to move you to room 1 and then straight to room 2. Okay.
Okay,
so
fine. That's fine.
I'll speak you in the main breakout for a quick whiz. That's okay. For a quick. Yeah, it's bizarre how it works, but yeah, I'll be very quick with this.
Do you want me to join and then join again? Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Sonica, you should have a request to join the breakout room. Oh, hi, Sonica. Have you got your on screen? Have you got the thing to join the breakout room? Cool.
They're using the full minute. How long left, Jules? Welcome back. There was obviously some good discussions going on there. So Holly, Andy, what do people know about their customers?
I think the main sort of feedback in the room was that people understand sort of some of the stuff about their customers that they see face to face, but some of the queries were, how do they find out more from about those online customers? Where can they get that information from?
Yeah.
Sorry,
go on.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to add and say there was also a bit of lots of people sort of talking about customer profiling. So people really did understand who their customer was that they were targeting. But yeah, I think the main feedback is, how can we find out more about the actual people buying?
That's a great question.
Shall I go ahead, Alison?
Please, please.
There are various ways of doing that. I think probably one of the easiest way to implement is just do a pop-up questionnaire on the website. Something like SurveyMonkey. It's really easy to implement, and I would always suggest you have one question on there, and you can have it on different pages. You can either have it at the checkout, you can have it halfway through the journey, wherever you want that information. But it could be as simple as a question of, did you find what you were looking for today? It could be any question you want. I would keep it very simple. I keep it to one question, and I would keep it to multiple choice answers as well. Because in my experience, if you give people free rein to write, they will write about something completely different that you didn't even ask about, and also less people will complete that. At Frugi, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, you know Frugi, but they've got the Frugi family, which is very useful. So it's a closed group on Facebook, where you basically, as a customer, you have to apply. They let you in, and all the conversations on there is on a closed group. And what they've done successfully is they will sometimes then put out questions to customers. They would, put an image of some new design on there and say, what do you think of this? Or we're thinking of doing this. What do you think about that? Or we have done this, what's your experience of this? And everybody's not going to respond. I think when I was a Frugi, there was just over 10,000 people on the Frugi family. I have no idea how many it is now. But we would sometimes put questions and we would get 500 responses within half an hour. And some of them you kind of take with a pinch of salt, but it's really good to get trends. If half the people say exactly the same thing, there's something in there. So that's another good way of doing it. We also did, so you can do very fancy sort of a consumer testing where you pay an agency to do it and it's quite expensive. Or actually you can just get some of those loyal customers and bring them into your office and do more of informal sessions. Again, we did this as Frugi, where we just got some of our loyal customers from those Frugi family, invited them in for a day. We gave them vouchers to shop on the website, and then just pose questions to them and kind of you moderate it and let them talk, but you have very clear things that you want to get out of those discussions. So there's various ways of doing it. I guess it's just what you have the time for, what information you want from that, and how you conduct those.
That's Sonica, I think, was just saying that they've got 18,600 people in the Frugi family now. I mean, that is a significant amount of people and a brilliant amount of data and information you can capture, isn't it?
Yes, and it's instant. People are pretty much straight on. You pose a question, you get instant feedback, and sometimes they give you feedback when you don't even ask for it, and you don't necessarily always want it. But yeah, you get conversations and feedback on there all the time.
Mish, I don't know if you're still there. How do you find out that information about your customers?
So we use a sort of a range of sources. So obviously within the shop, we're actually speaking to them face to face. Social media, so we might ask stuff through that as a channel. We definitely have added questions in, light, sort of not too many questions, because you don't want to increase the journey to the checkout, but we can add a few bits in at that point. Then we run a couple of big competitions, and we do open that up, but we also target people who are already on our customer database, and we know which ones are on our customer database, and our email list have shopped with us previously, and we can kind of then add the information about them that we've gained in the competition survey back into MailChimp. So in that, because it's a competition, and if you want to win, we're going to ask you all these questions. We can get when they last shopped with us, favorite brand, favorite style, age, whether we don't take a full address, we take a postcode. That lets me know whether they are Cornwall, Devon, or further afield. Yeah, so we kind of sort of scoop it up from lots of different areas, but it is harder with your online customer.
Yeah. I mean, great if you have a shop so you can see them face to face, but that concept of the Frugi family is it's just having a special group, isn't it? A group of your biggest advocates to kind of understand who your ideal customer is.
Yeah, and also it's worth bearing in mind that potentially your customer could be different on the different platforms. So the Frugi family is fantastic because you're drawing from that online community. My shop customer is actually different to my online customer. Their favorite brands, their buying behavior, their age, their disposable income is actually slightly different. So when I'm working with a customer, we'll profile, or we'll make avatars, maybe 6 different avatars to kind of suit who it is that we're looking at the time.
Yeah, I guess a simple question I've seen it pop up quite a lot: is this a gift? So it's understanding who they're buying for as well. I guess that's quite important in the mix, isn't it?
Yeah, and customer versus consumer, because who should you be targeting? And with the sort of follow-on, sort of for the upsell, who is it again that you're targeting? Because it might be the person who ended up with the gift, or it might be the giver of the gift, because you're trying to encourage them to buy a gift for somebody else. But of course, if the person who received the gift loves it and wants to buy into the brand, then that's who you're probably going to want to target.
Yeah. No, interesting. I know that this time of year, I'd always try and get from my kids their Christmas list. And I'm amazed that not more retailers don't kind of tap into that, in terms of making it easy to kind of put something in your wish list and sending it on to somebody else.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think on that point though, in terms of family, I'm part of a family which is spread out all over the country. We use a program called Giftster. We have a family Giftster account, and each one of us has a page, and we can put our Christmas or birthday things as the year goes along and remove them, and you can't see, but people can mark them as reserved and then purchased, and you can put a link in there, or you can leave it quite generic. But yeah, why retailers haven't bought into that, it's interesting because they do it with wedding lists.
Yeah.
So why not my Christmas wish list? Yeah, they're missing a trick.
Yeah, maybe not this year with things being scarce, but or maybe that's an even better reason to do it. But.
I mean, just adding to this, some analysis we did when I was at Frugi was about when people buy. So not seasonality, but actually, do they buy full price or do they buy in sale? And there was a clear distinction, as Mish was saying, between the different customer profiles about the customer that would buy in full price and the customer that would buy in sale. And actually think about the communication between those 2 different sets of customers, because they are completely different. Their buying patterns are different. When they buy, how they buy is completely different. And therefore, if you have that information, it's about how do you tailor the message between those 2 different customer sets, because they both love the brand, they just consume it in very, very different ways.
Yeah, no, interesting. I know when the Frugi sale is on that, there's a rush to Helston, isn't there? And the shop goes mad. And there's always a buzz in the office around the Frugi sale's on. So it's interesting. You're absolutely right. Fab, thank you. I'm just checking any other questions, guys. Please fire them in the chat, keep them coming, and we'll pick them up as we go through. So moving on. Thank you for that feedback, everybody. Jacko, what do we need to know next?
So just looking at a bit about the importance of data. Yeah, there's so many things around these days about big data and all those kinds of things. I remember going to a talk from the, I think he was the CEO of Facebook for Europe a couple of years ago, and he was saying that in the last 10 years, more data has been created than all the years before in the rest of mankind. Essentially, more data has been created in the last 10 years. So there is so much out there, and there's so much you can choose from. And I think it's just really starting thinking about the importance of data and kind of what to look at. And I think putting data together with your customer feedback and customer knowledge and segmentation, they kind of form the two parts of the coin. They go together, and I think together they can be really powerful. And I think it's really important to have some sort of data and kind of all decision making. I'm not saying by any means that data should be the basis for all decision making, but I think having some sort of data factored into decision making and priorities and what you're looking at is really important. I think the other thing about data is it completely takes out the emotion. Sometimes when you make decisions, there should be emotion, there should be gut in there, but I think the bit that data brings to that is it completely take out all of that emotion, and you can't really argue with data. It is what it is, and you kind of just need to decide what you want to do with it. There is so much data out there, and sometimes I think it's a question of, so what do you do with it, and what data do you look at? I always think there should be a reason why you collect data, and what's the end goal with it. So if you're going to collect data, if you're going to analyze data, actually there needs to be some kind of end goal with it, because I think a lot of the time, I've certainly worked in organizations where people just collect data and just analyze data, and then actually at the end of it you go, well, so what? It's really interesting, but actually what am I going to do with this? And I think it's really important when you start looking at data and when you analyze it, is thinking about actually what's my end goal? What do I want to do with this? Do I just want to clarify something that I wasn't sure of, or actually do I want an action of this, or do I want to make sure that what I'm doing is correct? But just something that you're going to do with it at the end. Otherwise, I think it's a nice exercise, but it might be, it could be not a waste of time, but your resources could be well spent in other places. I'm sure you all use Google Analytics. Great tool, and I think the more you use it, the better. There's so much. There's obviously loads of other tools out there, but Google Analytics is a free tool. You can get so much information in there, more information than you can ever use. So I think Google Analytics, I think it's a must, certainly on a very regular basis. I'll give you an example of sort of where, I mean, I use data in my role all the time, but just sort of an example of where data is really important and what we did with it. So one of the roles I started at, the company knew that the conversion rate on the website was not as good as it should have been, and actually it was in decline. There was loads of theories around it. A lot of people had theories around why the conversion is not doing well, but there wasn't really anything underpinning it. So we started looking at loads of different sets of data. We analyzed loads of different sets of data. And the one thing we pinpointed was that the cart abandonment rate for the website was just over 90%. So essentially, out of the 100 people you get to add something to their cart, just under 10 of them actually bought something. So if you think of all that hard work you do to get a customer to the website, to get them to add something to their cart, and then over 90 of them out of 100 just never makes that purchase. It was kind of disheartening. And just for a bit of context, the UK average is around 70%. So, on average, this is across all industries in the UK, excluding food and alcohol. About 3 out of 10 people that add something to their cart would actually go on and make that purchase. For us, it was it was just, you know, it was less than 10 out of 100. So we sort of then started looking at the funnel, understanding where people drop out and what the potential reasons for that was. Now, by no means was that the only reason, but it was one of the main reasons. And it then gave us an area to focus, and we then could drill further into that data and into each channel, where the people were coming from, how they were dropping off from each channel, what their journeys were, where in the funnel they were dropping off, and actually what were the reasons why they were dropping out. And that just, I think, just shows that if you do analyze the data, you've got an issue, analyze the data, it just helps you to focus on the areas that will make the biggest impact. Because if you look at that problem from the word go, there could be 100 things you could do and 100 things you could look at, but actually it's just pinpointing the areas that is going to have the biggest impact and is going to give you the biggest return for your time, and focusing on those and then spending your time on those. And it helps with the prioritization, and just spending your time in the right areas. I mean, there's loads of examples. I thought that one might resonate with you guys. So the next question, I guess, in the breakout group is kind of what data do you guys currently look at, and what do you do with that? What's the so what with the data that you look at, and what, you know, what's the next steps with those? I think you're on mute, Alice.
Thank you, Jacko. I do it at least once every webinar. That was the one for today. So we're going to give you, again, probably a little bit longer on that question, because I think it's quite an important one. So we're going to give you about 10 minutes on that, or a little bit longer if you need it. Is 10 minutes all right, guys, on importance of data? Okay, and we'll have some feedback in the room once you've had a chance to have a chat about it. Jules, over to you. So welcome back, folks. I think we've just got everybody gradually coming back in. Yeah, I think that's everybody now. So how did the data conversations go, guys? What data is currently being looked at and what is being done with it? Over to Holly and Andy to feedback.
So lots of people find that there's lots of data to look at and it can be quite confusing. It's hard to know where to sort of focus. Using data to compare to last year and help them to inform what sort of products to buy and how much stock. Sonica, I think, was using data to inform marketing campaigns. So looking at the best times to send when people buy and then matching that up with sort of social media campaigns. And yeah, using it to sort of see where people are coming from, what search terms they're using, and just trying to make sure that it all matches up across platforms. So lots of kind of different ways really, but the general theme is that there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
Some confusion of matching stuff up with what comes out of MailChimp, and so if there's anything Jacko can add to that match.
Okay. I mean, Google Analytics is the big one, isn't it?
Yes, and I think if you can, I mean, Google Analytics is usually, from experience, it's usually about 3 to 5% out of what you actually. So if you have a Shopify system, your Google Analytics numbers will usually be out by about 3 to 5%, and that's just because it sometimes tracks things slightly differently. Also, it doesn't include things like refunds. If you break out shipping, it just gives you the full price. And sometimes with regionality as well for different countries, it tracks things some slightly different by IP address. But Google Analytics will give you nearest as possible as right. As I say, between 3 to 5% usually discrepancy. But if anything, it gives you the trends as well. And sometimes all you want to see is the trends of actually, how does the trend work? But the data is pretty accurate. And then how that filters through to other systems, it's very difficult to answer, but it's it's usually about how the integration was done. Are the fields picking up the same kind of information, or different fields picking up different kinds of information, therefore reporting it differently? It's usually to do with how the integration was set up and the different fields that it looks at. In my experience, that's why systems will give you different data for different things. It's not that the data isn't there, it's just possibly sitting in another bracket because of different fields and different naming conventions and things like that.
Sure. And Mish, you were saying you had some experience of just something not being switched on.
Yes, so when we swapped over to a new Shopify site, we used Google Analytics, and there's a really easy way to switch it on, but actually it wasn't fine-tuned, if you like. There were some additional settings that could be changed. So after a couple of months, it only captured one sale, which obviously we knew not to be correct. So yeah, that needed addressing, and it was beyond my capability. So yeah, we used an external source, in this case Rob Edlin at Nidix, who could do that in seconds in his sleep. But yeah, it's worth checking. So across the board, it's worth checking the tools you're using are optimized for what you're trying to use them for and giving you as much data as they can.
And talking about clever tools, is anybody using Hotjar? Jack, I don't know whether you want to just explain what Hotjar is.
Yeah, so Hotjar, it's a free tool. I mean, like all these, you have a free package, and then you can pay more if you want more to do more clever things. But essentially, it's literally just a bit of code that goes in the website, and it allows you to set up heat maps on different pages. I think from memory for the free tool, it's 3 different pages. So you can choose product page, checkout card, whatever you want to choose, homepage, and it will allow you to see the heat map of those pages for a certain amount of visitors to your site. You'll see where they click, where they don't click, where they scroll, and all those kinds of things. You can it gives you the breakdown between desktop, tablet, and mobile as well. And it's sometimes interesting to see how people navigate differently between the different devices as well. But it also gives you, just to sort of go back to the customer view as well, and how you get data from your customers. It also gives you the opportunity to set up recordings and it's all anonymized. So, there's no GDPR issues there. But essentially, you get a certain amount of recordings. Again, you can set up for certain pages, and it will show you actual customers and how they navigate those pages, where they click, where they don't click. And what it helps for, if you see a lot of customers stopping at a certain point, there's an issue there, but you can actually get real-time data, and literally does it on a daily basis, of how customers navigate on the website. It's really, really useful.
Yeah, it's I know we've had some clients use it before, and it's a bit of a revelation, isn't it? It's a bit like your diagram you put up of the pathway.
Yes.
That's yes. People try and take. Yeah. Okay, no, that's helpful. Any questions, guys? Anything around data, what you're using, what you're capturing? Anything you want to ask before we move on to the next section? Feel free to put your mic on. It's okay. No? So our next section, we're going to have a look at systems and move on then to planning and priorities. So Jacko, back to you.
So systems, whatever you want to call them, systems, apps, whatever you want to call them. I know it can be an absolute minefield, and I know the choice out there these days about what systems you choose for what is probably endless. And it's I guess it's where you start with all of this, and how you sort of go through the process. I think for any business, and the tipping point is different for every business depending on your sector and what you do and how you run the business. But I think for any business to kind of make that next step up, for growth, you need some sort of automation for certain things, whether that's stock, whether that's customer segmentation, whatever it is. But at certain levels, you do need automation, making those things a bit easier, a bit quicker to get that scale to grow the business. And as I said, that is different for every business. It's usually somewhere, I think, around about in the millions. And I know, we went through that growth pain when I was at Frugi, when we went from sort of one level to another level of revenue, and we needed to start to automate things. We need to have better segmentation, and then it becomes a minefield. You sometimes feel paralyzed. You look at all these things, all these systems, and actually, where do you start and what do you do? I think the other thing I would say about systems, having gone through various processes of choosing systems, is there are so many out there, and most of them are good. Actually, most systems that's out there these days are good. They're all kind of very similar as well. And they all do some things really good, and they do some things not so well. And I think that's where the trick lies. And I'm sure if I have a room full of people and ask them what they think of, I don't know, Shopify or Magento, some of them will say it's amazing. Some will say, yeah, it's all right. And others will say, I hate it. And I think you're always going to get that view when you ask people about different systems, just because of what they wanted from it and what they want the system to do. I think having gone through this process, a lot of times, what I found in my experience is the key for choosing any system or any new process you want to do with systems is actually be really, really clear on what your requirements are. What's your requirements now, and what's your requirements going to be in the next 2 to 3 years when you use these systems, and then match those requirements with the various systems and what they do. I think the pre-work and getting those requirements, getting what you want from it, is absolutely crucial. I'll go through an example in a minute where I've been through a process where we haven't done that, and the pain of that. And I think probably most people have gone through the pain of that. It might take a bit longer to do that first step, to really go through that first step in detail. But at the end of the day, you'll save time in the long term. I think the second bit is just also be realistic about how much time it's going to take you to implement new processes and new systems. I think be very aware that sometimes it's not just something you can bolt onto your day-to-day job. In my experience, one or both suffers either the day-to-day job or the project. really be clear from the start who's going to do what. Do you have the necessary resources? Do you have the necessary experience and knowledge to be able to implement a new system? And actually, what does that mean afterwards? How does the things change afterwards? And the skills and experience is really important. So to give you an example, so when I was at Visit Britain, I got my new role as head of e-commerce at Visit Britain. I was on back to the moon and back, and within the first 18 months, we realized that our current website just wasn't good enough anymore. We were going from 8 million to 12-14 million pounds in turnover, and the current website was built bespoke, and it just didn't work for us anymore. So we decided, after many meetings, that we were going to have a new e-commerce system. We went out to tender. We saw various companies, but there was a lot of pressure on us to start the process quick, because the board wanted the money to come in quick and the system to be in quick. So we kind of skimped a little bit on the initial steps. You know, we saw a few customers, we went through the tender process, but we didn't really look at all our requirements. We didn't really interrogate some of the suppliers that came to pitch for us as we should have done. And also, we didn't have a dedicated team to run the process. So it was going to get bolted on our day-to-day jobs. Now, this was a big project. It was a £250,000 project, £250,000 project over 12 months. We chose somebody, rubber stamped it, and off we went. And I thought, oh, you know, this is going to be easy. We're just going to implement a new system. There's loads of people working on it. It's a great agency, and off we go. Soon realized that was not happening. You know, there was almost issues from the first month onwards. And requirements came out of the woodworks. I know, actually, we want to do this now. The finance team wants to do this. And it started escalating, and project creep came in. Before we know it, there was an extra £50,000 put on top of the project. And things just didn't go well. It actually came to a stage where the project stopped because there was too many disagreements between us and the agency, and it kind of stopped everything. And it also affected our day-to-day running of the business, and actually we saw a hit on our revenue growth as well, on the day-to-day business as well. So the end result was, after a lot of grey hair and tears and difficult days, the project was delayed by 6 months. So we did launch in the end, but it was 6 months late. It went over budget by almost 40%, and we didn't quite get what we wanted to get in the end. And I think that's quite normal with IT projects. But I think the big and harsh lesson for me was really spend the time at the start of the project, even though it takes longer. Really be clear on what your requirements is and what you want to achieve, and really document those. Be careful of project creep, and make sure that you have the team and resources in place to do that project. Otherwise, you're just going to pay for it at a later stage, and it's just going to come back and haunt you. So, you know, I wouldn't be able to recommend necessarily any systems to you guys on whatever you want to do. There's always more than one that can do the job, but it's really about understanding what your requirements is, and then matching it to what each system can do. And if I can give you one tip, is don't believe the salesman that tells you this is easy and easy to implement, and it's just an app that you add. It's 99.9% of the time not true. There's always something else to it that the salesman doesn't tell you. But just be very vigilant at the start, and really plan as well as you can. Any questions on that before I move on?
It would be interesting to know, Jacko, what people are using. So, you know, please fire in the chat. I think we had it on our survey earlier on, but let us know what systems you're using, folks. And if there's anybody in the room that are thinking of changing systems, needing to change systems, what they're thinking of, where we can just sort of share some advice and experience. So if you can pop what you're using. I know we've got a few Shopify users. Mish, you're using Shopify, aren't you?
Yes, I am using Shopify. Sorry, just unmuting.
Have you used that from the beginning, or have you had that experience of changing over?
Yeah, so we changed over. We only changed to Shopify this year. So previous to that, we were on Magento 1. No, we weren't. That's a complete lie. Between Magento 1 and Shopify, we were on WooCommerce. Previous to WooCommerce, we were on Magento 1. And previous to that, I think we were on Joomla. So I think possibly we'll see a time when people can stay on the same platform for many, many years with Shopify, because it's going to evolve itself. But even if you're on something very powerful like Magento obviously has many updates, and then it became Magento 2, which for all intents and purposes basically required a rebuild for most people. So I don't know that you can totally future-proof the platform that you're choosing. And of course, when I started, Shopify didn't exist. So obviously newcomers to the market that take market share, and it's so accessible. I think that's the beauty of Shopify versus the amount of money you need to spend for a Magento setup.
Okay. Sorry, Michelle, I think it's good practice to review it from time to time, like you say. Just every couple of 2-3 years, and actually review what you've got and what's new in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's too easy to stay with the same thing and think it was good enough, but is it still the best offering? Is it the best customer experience, the best usability for yourself as well?
So you've got Sonica, they're using Wix. Robert,
is there a system which is best to amalgamate both the website and a physical presence? Is there a system whereby you're going to get the best of both worlds?
What do you mean, sort of physical shop and e-commerce?
Yeah. So I mean, if we're looking at doing stock levels and things like that, because we've got several different storage facilities, we need a system whereby we've got what's in the shop and what's in the warehouse, but in different places. But we're at the moment, there's 2 of us, and we're very manual. We're all pen and papers. What's the best bespoke option to go for?
I've not actually worked with Shopify. One system I've not worked with. Mish will be able to say more about that. But my experience with Magento and other systems is that they have some sort of stock management in there, and it kind of works to a certain level. But I guess in the past we've always then integrated a bolt-on to, so most e-commerce systems will work with third parties that has a bolt-on for either stock or data or whatever, and it's trying to understand is how much do you want to automate that, and actually the system that you work with, do they have a third party or a preferred partner which is easier to integrate, that then will help you with stock automation to take it that step further.
Right. Okay.
Robert, what platform is your website on?
We're on WooCommerce at the moment.
Okay, so there are some, so you wouldn't really probably use Shopify being a whole separate platform, but there are some plugins that you can use, or there are some bolt-ons, so standalone EPOS stock management systems that will talk to WooCommerce, and you can also log what is in your shop and segment it. I would be very, very hesitant to say whatever the best is, because people's experience and their needs are very different. Even when I went for a specific fashion retail that was meant to deal with vast numbers of SKUs, we hit a problem on day 1. And that particular company have been trying to overcome that problem for about 3 years, and it's still not happened. So if I was buying into another program again, the biggest advice I would give you is go and pick up the phone and be very blunt and ask people who use that system how they genuinely find it, and ask customers that are similar to you, because they'll have you're not stealing their data. It's just like, I'm wanting to buy this package from this company. I understand you use it, and you can even use the names. They'll make some suggestions. Now they may have primed them, but Equally, some of those will still be quite honest, and they'll tell you a bit of problems about teething issues and whatever else. But if you can dig around and find some other clients, often they advertise them on the website. We've supplied this person, this person, this person. They haven't necessarily asked about that or checked how well they're getting on with it. So just ask. And find out as well how easy it is to come out. Does it come with a trial, 14-day, 30-day? But you are going to need an identifier, so like a barcode, and whether that be an EU one, a European one, or a global one, some way of identifying the products to get them into the system. So if your products aren't barcoded, that can be a bit of a bind, or if they're on different types of barcodes, that could be a bind. There is a system in Shopify to generate barcodes, but on the one hand, you can probably wait longer till you implement it, but on the other hand, if you put it in when the business is nice and small and you've only got a few things going on, it goes in nice and easily and it grows with you. So depends where you're already at, to be honest, as well.
Yeah, no, because I mean, we don't even have an EPOS till or anything like that. So you know, we're right back in the dark ages, but that's just how we roll with it. We just, you know, build on and you know, everything that we've worked for in the last year. You know, we've learned a lot from the people on these calls. You know, and it's the only way, I think, for business to grow, that we share our ideas and our pitfalls.
I don't think I actually had a till at all of any description for the first 4 years. We had a cash box like in the other room. So it is possible to get to quite a sort of significant size without tools that others would consider absolutely necessary. But when we then transitioned across, rather than like having a couple of hundred things to put in, we had thousands. So we felt that when we made that move, but equally we saved a fair amount of money by doing it later. So it just has to be what's right for you.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
Might get you speaking to Nastasia after this, because it sounds like she's gone from Shopify, got rid of Bright Pearl, and is combining the online and physical shop. So they've left Shopify and gone to Order Space, so for wholesale. So there's some more experience in the room, hopefully you can tap into. So thank you guys. We're going to ask you to keep those questions coming in the chat, but we're going to wrap up, I think, Jacko, with the next section.
Yeah, so the last bit really it's just about, it's about having a plan, and this is more sort of focused on I guess on a plan for the website. So taking all the previous bits into consideration, you know, what do you know about your customers? What have your customers said about their Germany? What have you learned about your customers? What has the data told you? You know, and sort of kind of putting all those things together is having kind of a 12 to 18 month plan on what are you actually going to do on the website. So what, you know, what changes are you going to make on the website? You know, what areas are you going to focus on to improve the customer journey and therefore the conversion? So, you know, are you going to do something on the car? Are you going to do something on the homepage? Are you going to rewrite your content? Whatever that is, I think it's important to have a view of the next 12 months to understand where you're going to make those impacts and what those potential impacts are going to be. Like all plans, they will probably change, you know, but at least if you then have a plan and you change something, you can then go, oh, actually, I can't do X anymore. I don't want to do X anymore. I want to bring Y in. And then you can, you know, then it's a trade-off between priorities, and you've got a clear view of what's happening when and or what needs to shift. You know, we always work on a 12 to 18 month plan, with those sort of planned in with developers and you know, whatever resources you need, and it does help. And it, you know, it's not a kind of document that you know, it doesn't have to be fancy. Trello boards, for instance, is a free tool, and it's really easy to use, and it really helps with something like this. And it just gives you that view, and it helps you to plan all your resources and understand where you're going to make those changes, and where the gains are going to come from. And, you know, how does your business as usual work with your new projects, and how does the two fit together? And I've always found that really useful, and it just really sort of helped with that planning. And I guess the last bit, I'm sure you guys have seen this or very, very similar ones to this, but I guess it's just understanding of, which ones are you going to tackle? Because there's always more you can do than you've got the resources to do. So the quick wins, everybody wants quick wins. Yeah, you kind of get those at the table and you see the impact straight away. The fill-ins are the kind of things that sometimes I think is easy to do. But the impact is low as well. Major projects, you want to have some major projects, maybe at least one just to make some really fundamental changes, but that's going to move the dial. And the thankless task is obviously the ones that you don't want to be doing and where you don't want to be caught, and you don't want to do any of those and kind of leave them. And then I guess just as a conclusion, as I said, there's no silver bullet. I said somebody said that to me right at the start of my career, and that's kind of really resonated with me. But there's lots of opportunities. There's lots of things you can do. Get to know your customers, understand your customers' experience. What do you do with your data? What data do you collect? What do you do with that data? Where are you going to go with your systems? What do you do with those? And then sort of planning and priorities after that. And that is it from me.
Jacko, thank you. I think that's a really great way to kind of summarise and wrap things up, because the room have been on a bit of a journey through these 4 sessions. Starting off with how we're getting found and understanding that customer journey and the whole messy middle with Jay. We've then looked at email marketing and the power and the impact of getting that right. We've obviously got social media in the mix of all of it. And I think today, looking at those, whether you love Amazon or not, it's looking at how you can utilize those marketplaces and, coming back to our systems. So brilliant, guys. You've given us lots and lots to think about. We've got a few minutes left for any burning questions for Jacko or for Mish. I don't know if we would just want to take the slides down a minute so
yes.
that we can get everybody back on the screen. There we go. Please feel free just to pop your microphones on if you've got anything that you want to ask. We will close the webinar at 12:30 because I appreciate you've been online for 3 hours. But again, if anybody's got anything more complicated or more detailed they want to ask, we can hang around for a little while after 12:30. But anything burning that you want to ask, you use these guys' experience. Far away. While you're thinking of them, I'm going to let you know that we actually, for those of you, some of you that are perhaps thinking about a change in system, we have another program called Digital Transformation. It is a brilliant, again, ERDF funded program that can help you make those massive transitions, help you to plan them. If you are looking to implement those new systems, part of that session, we've got another workshop on the 21st of October, which is about data-driven decision making. So we've touched a little bit on data today, but actually there's a whole lot more that you can learn around how you find that data, how you can use it. So that workshop is around making decisions using data. If data has piqued your interest, but also if you have got those large digital projects, if you've got to look to make those changes to your systems, give us a shout. I want to say thank you, because you've been a fantastic audience. I know we've not got many cameras on today, but I know over the 4 sessions you've been participating brilliantly. I hope it's given you what you need to think about your Q4 plan. I'm sure you've all got massive to-do lists that have come off the back of all of these sessions. So it just leaves me to remind you, we've got the BDM team who'll be in touch. If you've got any other questions, any other needs beyond this session, then you can talk those through with your BDM. They will be firing you over a little bit of paper for a digital signature to say that you've attended the 4 sessions. So that is it from us. A huge thank you to Mish and Jacko. Brilliant that you've shared your experience with us today. Fantastic that we've got this level of experience in Cornwall that we can tap into. So we really, really appreciate that. Thank you, guys. I'm going to formally close. So if anybody needs to shoot off, good to do so. But if there are any final questions, we'll be here for a little while. Thank you, folks. Bex has just put a link in there to the data-driven decision making, how you book, if that's of interest to you. So thank you, everyone. Natasha, have you got a question? Yeah, far away.
No, I'm just going to say thank you very much. Love them as always. Thank you.
You're welcome. And if you, Robert and Natasha, you might want to hook up, because it sounds like Natasha might have done what you need to do next, Robert.
I must say it wasn't me who did it, but
okay.
But yeah, the team. Yeah.
Okay.
I won't take credit.
We'll leave you to make that connection.
Thank you.
Recording and slides will come out afterwards, guys, so you can pick up on anything that you missed. Cool. Thank you, everybody.